For this session, I wrote 287 words. For this session, I wrote 135 words, and my week's total word count is 912 words. I have been reading more of Invitation to a Beheading by Vladimir Nabokov, and I'm now almost halfway through, and already this has become one of my favorite books. Even if the rest of the book falls apart, I would return to this book over and over and over again. Being further along in this book, I am now realizing that it is less a story about characters than it is a personification of the tension of being a writer who wishes to express and transcend beyond the norm. Let me read you some lines on page 93. Alas, no one taught me this kind of chase, and the ancient inborn art of writing is long since forgotten. Forgotten are the days when it needed no schooling, but ignited and blazed like a forest fire. And then a few lines further down, not knowing how to write, but sensing with my criminal intuition how words are combined, what one must do for a commonplace word to come alive and to share its neighbor's sheen, heat, shadow, while reflecting itself in its neighbor and renewing the neighboring word in the process so that the whole line is live iridescence. This is a passionate expression on writing, is my take so far. And I'm loving it. And it's a really timely read for me because lately I have been wanting to reconnect with my magical thinking capacity. And this brings me to the second book I want to talk about today, the Dictionary of Symbols. And I have owned this book now for a few days, and it has already become quite the staple in my collection. And I wanted to share with you how I've been utilizing this book to stretch my creative thinking, to exercise my creative thinking. So a few days ago, I can't remember now because I do not keep track of the days, my husband and I went for an early morning run, and we were in this mist, this really mystical mist, and through it, we caught sight of a heron. So we got two magical, mystical elements, and I thought, ooh, that would be those would be perfect symbols to look up in the dictionary. And of course, surely they had entries for mist and heron, and I want to read you the snippets. So for heron, the white heron is the Toltec hieroglyphic for Aztlan, the primeval island Atlantis. With stork and ibis, the heron is a snake killer, and all three are therefore regarded as anti-satanic creatures, fighting evil and consequently as symbols of Christ. This opposition of heron and serpent, like that of fire and water, recurs in Cambodian folk beliefs. The appearance of a heron foretells drought, and when it perches on a house, it heralds fire. In ancient Egypt, the phoenix, the symbol of the solar cycle and of resurrection, may well have been the purple heron. The stance of these birds, erect and motionless on one leg, naturally conjures up the notion of contemplation. The symbolism of the heron is the same as that of other wading birds in ancient Irish literature. It most often occurs in a metaphor used to describe the warlike grimaces of the hero Cuchulainn. This hero made one of his eyes pop out like a cauldron in which a yearling calf could be cooked, and the other sink so deep into its socket that a heron's beak could not reach it. In European and African tradition, the heron symbolizes not only the indiscretion of somebody who pokes his nose into other people's business, but the vigilance which may so easily degenerate into busybodiness. In ancient occultism, herons passed for symbols of divine knowledge, no doubt because of their sharp, penetrating bills. And then I'm going to read you the segment on mist. Symbol of the indeterminate, of a phase in development when shapes have yet to be defined, or when old shapes are vanishing and have yet to be replaced by definite new shapes. Mist is also a symbol of the mixture of air, water, and fire, which existed prior to the creation of solid matter, like the original tohu bohu, as it was before the 6 days creation and before all things were given their shape. I believe tohu bohu is a Hebrew symbol of like chaos or something like that. Japanese painters often depict horizontal or vertical mists, kasumi. They denote a break in the thread of a story, a transition in time scale, or a passing into a world of fantasy or wonder. Some Irish literary sources associate fog or mist with the music of the otherworld, Sid, or with the otherworld itself. The Voyage of Bran speaks of a lovely mist which conjures up or symbolizes indistinction, the period of transition between two states of being. Similarly, when Senchin Torpius sends his son Muirgin to raise the soul of King Fergus to teach him the tale of the cattle raid Cooley, which no poet then knew in its entirety, and there's an excerpt of that. Thus, myths are regarded as preludes to important revelations, prologues to manifestations. Okay, so that was a lot, but let me give you the example of how I use this book, the Dictionary of Symbols, for magical thinking practice, creative writing practice. I wrote a simple sentence of the activity. This morning I went for an early run and it felt magical because of the mist, heron, and my husband as companion for the adventure. And then after I read and contemplated the symbols of the mist and the heron, I wrote a new, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, I just blanked for a second. I wrote a new passage and it reads like this. This is just a draft, by the way, not polished. There are certain moments in the year when the veil between the earth and its sister is sheer. In these moments, the great mist descends from the heavens to graze upon nature, harvesting earth's magic to take back into the heavens. If a seeker should catch the great mist during its grazing, the seeker who is willing to run into its terrifying depths, its womb, will be granted audience with the heron mage, whose sacred gardens lies within. Sighting of the heron mage gives the seeker seer's eyes, which allows the seeker to navigate the invisible realms and enter them. This has been so fun to do, this activity, and I have been wanting to incorporate more and more of this kind of magical thinking, mythical thinking practice. And it really is as simple as writing one line of what you've done that day and figuring out a new way of framing it through the lens of symbology, etc. Another reason why I have been in this practice of magical or mythical thinking is because I am bored with reality, and this is why I write, because I want to create new worlds in my head that I can put to paper and it becomes real on paper. And on the note of reality or surreality, I am of the belief that there is a spectrum of tangibility in reality. So whether the object is on this end of the spectrum, which is most tangible, to this end of the spectrum, which is not as tangible or not at all tangible, to me, it's still reality. And so with mythical thinking, it may be on the intangible end of the spectrum of reality. However, it's still reality. And if I turn it into a book, or I use that thinking to help me create a book, it then becomes also a more realized form of reality. Lastly, some new books that I have acquired for my collection. Yesterday I went to Goodwill and I picked up, I found this book, The Fountainhead by, I never know how to say her name. Is it Ayn Rand? Ayn Rand? I don't remember. I used to say it was like Anne Rand, but I know that's not right. Anyways, backstory on Rand. I have tried to give Atlas Shrugged a try over the years, but I just couldn't get on with it. And I saw this and I thought, okay, well, let me try to give The Fountainhead a try. I am determined to at least read one of her books in its entirety. And I really do think objectivism is an interesting philosophy. So I think I'm going to, like, even if I don't vibe with it, I think I'm gonna push myself on this one and read it through. That said, doing the spot checks through this book, I do like it more than Atlas Shrugged. So it is already giving me a different vibe and feel. Also new in my collection, but not a new read. I've read this book a few times over in the past. The Kybalion. I also don't know how to say it correctly. Is it Kybalion? Hermetic Philosophy. And I found this really adorable copy for $10 and I had to pick it up. So I've really enjoyed this book. It's definitely food for thought. And every time I'm in a mental rut and, you know, I don't want to pick up something heavy to read or something large, picking up this book and just even flipping to a page, I mean, it sets my mind right. So there's that. And then lastly, I finally acquired The Count of Monte Cristo. I don't really think I need to explain much about this, but I'm excited it's here. I read this when I was in high school or middle school, and I don't really remember it. So I do want to reread it again, and I'm excited to reread this in my adulthood. Over the years, I have seen the movie adaptations of The Count of Monte Cristo, and I hate when the movie becomes the dominant picture in my mind than a book. So I have had a lot of time in between my last rewatch of The Count of Monte Cristo, which was like on TV one day several years ago. So I'm hoping that it will not interfere with my enjoyment of rereading this book. I have yet to get to my writing session today, so I'm going to do that, and then I will insert my clip of my word count at the end of this video. And then after that, I think I'm going to do a little home workout circuit to get the blood flow moving, to get the activity going, because, you know, the Right Life is rather sedentary, and I have noticed that if I do not make intentions for my activity, it really does affect my creative flow as well. Anyways, that is all that I have for this vlog, and I will see you in the next one. 10-minute home workout circuit done. For this session, I wrote 45 words, and that is it for this vlog.